Okay, thank you very much, Reverend Father Charles Ajibai, for that warm welcome. And we just go straight into the business of the day. And I believe our panelists, as earlier introduced, very much in the house. Now, so what we're going to be doing is in our conversation and engagement, we'll have the first 10 minutes for the major speaker, and then any other panelist who has contributions. We're going to manage the last 5 minutes to do that. And then pending the time when we're going to the question and answer session, where definitely we'll be able to attend to more issues. Our first discussion is on the reality of gender-based violence. Sometimes it still looks like some myths and stories to people, whether this really exists, especially in spaces where people have been taught and enlightened to be good to themselves, having good neighborliness, good and respect for people. However, we're going to be looking at the reality of the gender-based violence, and Pastor Marcus Williams is going to be speaking very briefly on what are the definitions and forms of gender-based violence that we have, the statistics, the myths and misconceptions, the personal testimonies, if there are, and then some of the root causes. So one more time, Pastor Marcus Williams, he is the chairman of your state rapid response team on sexual-based violence and child abuse. So Pastor Marcus Williams, please, you have the floor for the next 10 minutes or thereabout. Thank you. Pastor Marcus, are you in the house? Okay, I'm not so sure. The reason is because we also have a number of phones coming in, and I wouldn't know if you're using another name on your device, but I've not seen your name. And I guess from there, we can just go straight to the second discussion, which has to do with the effects on family, especially on people with disability and children. And Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Remu will be speaking to us, engaging us on the impacts on family dynamics, children's perspective, and what are the specific challenges for people with disabilities, PWDs, long-term consequences, and the entire society, space and world towards having a safer place, like Father Charles Ajibai said. So Dr. Ademola Remu, you have the floor for the next 10 minutes in the first instance. You're welcome.
Very much. Thank you very much. It's so good to be with you today. And like we've said, we've been on this 16 days of gender-based violence. And I love the opening, beyond educating people, informing them. What are the next set of actions that we should take? Thank you very much. I want to say thank you so much to JDPC. You always do what many people would not dare to do. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Sister Augustina. Thank you, everyone. And of course, my Ogada is the moderator. How are you doing, sir? So today we shall be talking about the more vulnerable of the vulnerables. Yes, I like to call them that. What has made them more vulnerable, especially people living with disabilities, what has made them more vulnerable is the fact that somehow part of the human senses are lacking. Sometimes it could be by accidents, can be by birth. Okay, can be process, can be genetic. We have biological basis of disabilities. You have accidental basis of disabilities. That means sometimes during the process of life, people came into a position where they could not use some of their faculties, neuropathy. And of course, disability can be physical. That means when people have challenges with their eyes, their hearing, it could be with speech. It can even be with senses, feelings. Some children don't feel pain when you beat them. So adults tend to think they are just insensitive and begin to beat some more. So that's child abuse. And of course, you can also have mental disability, a situation where the neurological basis of the body issues. That particular child cannot speak like others, slow to learn. So you can have dysgraphia, you can have dyscalculia, you can have dyslexia. The child is not learning and cannot cope in the normal school system. Then you also
admin lele. Admin lele.
okay, sorry. Like I was locked out. Okay, thank you. I think I can keep speaking now. I was locked out. Okay, so let's continue. So sometimes.
Yeah, sorry, please continue. Thank you.
In physical disability, you can see, for example, you can see somebody with a white cane, then you know this person needs help. But where is the violence coming from? The violence is coming. There was a study that was carried out in 2016. And what was it about? There was a collation of papers about people living with disabilities. Do you know that when people get older, the older the people get, the more disabled they can become? So you have grandmas that cannot hear so well. You have young women, a lot is going on. It's a whole lot of dynamics. And they've proven that people living with disabilities suffer more violence over their lifetime than the ordinary people. What do I mean by that? Already there's a gender-based violence against men, women. Why did I add the men? Because it's gender-based violence, not just female-based violence. But the females suffer disproportionately to the male. But I want to tell a story. There was a teacher that was engaged, like a carer, for one boy that had mental disability. Do you know this lady went on ahead, a young girl who had her fiance abroad, went on and molested this boy until she got pregnant. That's when she came on it, that the boy could not communicate to his parents right in their house. She was being paid. So part of the violence that these differently abled people suffer is the fact that even their caregivers, including health professionals at times, based on certain philosophy, they suffer more. Because if people think of the hardship issue too, ableists, like they call them, people that think that when you're differently abled, you're less of a human. Then the other ones that think of the hard work, they think that it's more difficult to cope with this set of children or adults, any disabled person, than you would cope with a normal person. So those theories are the basis for stigma. Stigma, in fact, this person is not speaking like you, but people may not, like the deaf community, they're already a community. So they're having less, not that they're not discriminated against by the general population, but because of their community, they're able to deal together to face their challenges together. The disabilities, those that have learning disability. Too many people don't even know that it's not that these children are refusing to learn. It is that they cannot learn by the methods by which the normal friends. They have neurological incapacity. I want to draw attention to that. So one, disability because of age. When a child is young, is differently abled, he needs help to grow. When people are old, they must. So we need one, legislation that will help us. If an old woman is on a queue, traditionally we had values that meant if somebody was pregnant, if somebody was differently able,
Dr. Ademola
you would have
Aremu,
a situation.
I guess you're having a situation with your network. Sometimes you
Okay.
freeze. Yes, I hope you're going to have a good time. But please kindly also focus generally on everyone, the effects on the family that's beyond the children and disability now. Thank you.
Yes. For the effects on the children, one, a mother that has a child who cannot read, for example, is usually stigmatized, olodo, you know. They would even teachers sometimes would draw a big face and put spots on it. So there's discrimination, stigmatization, even of the family. And then within the family, this one child, for example, if the people had disorders of their maybe blood, they would suffer more because they need more money to be cared for. Healthcare costs is very high for them. Then the other part of it is when people are differently able to, differently, maybe mental incapacity or blindness, they will need more help. So more of the resources will be going to these ones than to other members of the family. Hello, do you want me to say more?
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu. I thought it was another glitch in the network, actually. Yes, definitely, you're still going to say so much more. But for now, I'd
if
like
I still have time, I can say more.
No, you just have 2 minutes
There's
more, actually.
isolation too. I can't hear you.
You want to say something?
Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but you just have 2 minutes
I can't
more.
hear you. Anyway, can I, maybe because you're recording, I can speak.
2 minutes more.
Okay, so fine. We have isolation too. When people are differently abled, they can be easily isolated. So the chance of escape is highly limited. They cannot, and because sometimes they are public facilities, the complaints process is not in place. So when people are differently able, they cannot complain like most people. Then, like I mentioned, where we can think about is also this caregiver issue. Even the caregivers, they think that they should earn more, so they are financially abused too. To get the same care, they would pay more. And that drains the resources of the family. So the family keeps thinking this is a burden to us. They may not voice it, but these people have emotions and they can feel it. In fact, you hear some of them say, I hope I'm not a burden to you. I didn't want to bother anybody. I just want to be left alone. Of course, they also suffer a lot of emotional trauma, like depression is common amongst them. Okay. I think my 2 minutes is up, but do I continue?
Thank you very much, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu. Your time is actually up, so that we can have everyone, participate in all of this. So I'd like to know if we have some of our other panelists whoever wants to say something very short on the effect on family, especially on people with disability and children, especially on long-term consequences and, the society. Well, if you have any contribution, please speak.
Good afternoon.
Okay, of course, is there.
Okay, please introduce yourself. Who's speaking?
My name is Marcus Williams. I don't know who is working on the other end.
Pastor Marcus, hold on, please. Now, if you are not speaking to the discussion, please mute your device. We're still having infiltrations. So if you are not speaking to the discussion, please mute your device. All right, let's have Pastor Marcos say something very briefly before we come back to your main discussion.
Thank you. I thought it had started. That was why I was quiet for a bit to understand when I was to be called, but since you've thrown it open, our understanding from the responder's point of view within your state is that each time we have victims or survival of gender-based violence as it relates to persons
Sorry,
with
hold it, Pastor
disabilities.
Marcus. Pastor Marcus.
All right, I'm with you.
Are you speaking to the effect on the family, or you want to start your own session?
The effect on the family.
All right, so please, you have just a minute to do that because we are coming back to your session, which was supposed to be earlier on.
All right, so I was trying to say that whenever we have persons like that, we always have situations where the family has always shirked from their responsibility, and that becomes a very big problem for the survivors over time. Most times they are stigmatized based on what has happened, and they are blamed based on how it happened, what occasioned it, etc. And so these persons with disabilities never seem to thrive or come back as a way of recovery from that violence that had happened to them. So it's always very significant in their experience of this violence against them. Thank you.
Thank you
So,
very much. Thank you very
I
much,
would also
Pastor
like
Marcus.
Reverend, I would also
Yes.
like to, talking of the impact of gender-based violence on
All
the
right, go
family.
ahead, Sister Apple.
On the family, generally, when does this kind of the gender-based violence in the family, the children feel it more, especially when it's perpetrated on the mother. You see, they are traumatized. Even most times women, I mean, I know men get it too, but most times women are the victim. They're traumatized. Most times they walk up to us here with their stories and their issues. Listening to them, you see a strong woman who is traumatized, who is concerned about the kids. The kids are heavily also traumatized. The impact is just there, and they find it difficult to relate. You see kids who are doing a bright child in the school who used to be very lively, full of life, but once this begins to happen in the family, it just translates on the children. They begin to withdraw, begin to underperform in school. And so it's an evil that it's there that we all need to do what we must do to ensure that we protect everyone. And I dare to say too that even whoever is perpetrating this evil of gender-based violence, it's also not at peace. It takes someone who is wanting to hurt others. I mean, if you're happy in yourself, there's no way you'll be dishing out harm to others. So, and that's why when they come to us here, we'll try to look at everyone, the woman or the lady who has come to report, and then even the person who is perpetrating this harm. We'll try to bring everyone together, find out what's happening and what we can do to help, especially women who have come up to us, and then of course the man. The man also needs help.
All right, thank you very much,
Let me just
Reverend
stop
Sister.
here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Augustina, for your contribution. Thank you, Pastor Marcus. And a great thanks to the discussant on that topic herself, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola. We're still going to have some other opportunity to engage, and then we're still going to fill you more. So we've talked about the effects on the family, especially on children and people with disabilities. And I like what Sister capped it up with, that it takes a hurting person to also want to hurt others. So it's always a way of wanting to have a revenge on the society or on the people. Okay, Pastor Marcus is here, and your session was supposed to be the first one, but it's never late. So we'll go to your session. You are talking on the reality of gender-based violence. So you're going to be having 10 minutes to speak to us. And after the 10 minutes, we're going to have some other panelists speak to the issue of the reality of gender-based violence. So you have the floor, Pastor Marcus Williams. Thank you.
Easy again.
Pastor Marcus, are you in the house?
I'm in the house. Is it time for me to speak
Okay,
up?
so yeah, please speak to your discussion on the reality of gender-based violence.
Within as a responder, right?
You are a panelist, and your topic
Oh.
is the gender-based violence, the reality. What are the definitions? If you have statistics and trends, the myths and the misconceptions, and some of the root causes that you'd like us to know. So you have 10 minutes initially first to speak.
Fantastic. So I don't know if you are seeing me, but it's like my whatever behind me is shadow. So I'll just turn a bit. Thank you once again. And I really need us to understand that gender-based violence has no connectivity to female or male or children. What makes it a gender-based violence is because whenever it is perpetrated, whenever it happens to an individual, it is as a result of the sex of that person at that time, not necessarily because it was targeted at that particular group. Because findings from our work suggest that most times you have men who, as it were, are survivors, but people don't categorize them as such because of the way we have stereotyped GBV concerns. And so they never report, they never speak out, but they suffer in silence. However, the statistics within Oyo State suggest so strongly that whenever you have one man who says he has been abused by women, you have close to 50 women that have been abused by too many men. And of course, when you have one woman who has gotten one man as an assaulter, an assault person to her, you can count other to 10 women that can boldly count as much as 13, 14 men that have passed through their lives that have done stuff to them. Now, that is inclusive of children. The last statistics that we can strongly quote in Oyo State was when we have about 635 responses done, and we check the statistics to look at the variables between male and female, and we realized that male was just 10% and the remaining 90% were women. And amongst this number, we had close to children 7 to 15 as 50% of that number. For us, is very staggering. The reason it's staggering is because it appears as if children are a major focal target for violence and all sorts of abusive perpetration that happens around them. And within communities, each time a case is reported, people say, so is it still happening despite all the sensitization that has been done, etc.? And I keep saying, it has always been there. The reason you are hearing it is because of the effect of sensitization, the effect of community engagement, stakeholders engagement, assurances to victims or survivors that they will be helped, etc., that has happened in the state. And so people are just beginning to come. So it's not anything new. It's been happening, it is still happening, and it will continue to happen as long as the causal factors are there. Well, one of such major causal factors is poverty. Of course, where you have poverty enshrined within a household, and father goes out to look for a wherewithal for the children, and mother takes herself to also look for wherewithal, leaving the children in the custody of neighbors, and particularly a neighborhood where you have a predator, unseemingly looking predator who looks like a fine madam. And before you know it, one child is taken out of that household and sent away far as from the northern part to the southern part, to Oyo State in particular. And that is trafficking in persons, and brought and say, I'm looking for who we buy. And then when apprehended, you hear cries like they were wicked to me. I was hungry, they didn't give me food, so I felt that was the only thing I could do, attributing it to poverty. And the father said, I went looking for food, poverty. Mother said, I also went looking for food, poverty. A woman left the house for just 10 minutes to go and get lunch for her children. Before she would come back, the child 6 years old has been violated by a neighbor. Of course, all these cases I'm talking about, they were apprehended, they were taken to court, and they were sentenced accordingly in Oyo State. But then for us, it's like people are just beginning to know, and so they cry out. So poverty is very entrenched as a major causal factor for GBV concerns within the state. Then we look at family disintegration, a major causal factor, particularly when it concerns women. And most of the cases we have responded to in the state speaks to the fact that whenever it is to happen, there are indicators leading to that. But you see, women, as magnanimous as they are, will always tell you he will change. It's just this first time. It's just the second time. I know what he wants. But if you can just cancel him for us. And before you know it, finally, it becomes aggravated assault. And then either one eye is blinded, or one stabbing takes place, or the woman stabs the man, or the man stabs the woman, and people say, this is getting bad. It has always been bad. It has always been there. But when there's a disintegration within the family, as it relates to the man and the woman, before you know it, the children suffer, the woman suffer. Most times, the man takes to his heel, finds solaces in other places, but because of stigma and discrimination against women, the woman finds it very difficult to get help within the community. So people apportion blame to her. Why didn't you agree? Why didn't you concede? Why didn't you accept? Why didn't you yield? Why didn't you wait? And so she's always blamed. And as a result of that, the woman finds it difficult to express herself, to talk about the abuse that is ongoing. And so it remains in the community. Another causal factor that we should also look at is very obvious around the issue that there are that men, women, or fathers and mothers, or cousins and uncles, they neglect the burden of care placed on them, on the woman, on the girl child, and on children. By neglecting, they fail to do protective things they could have done that would have protected the woman. For instance, a young boy trying to bully the young sister at a small age, a tender age. If that child is not corrected, the child will grow up with an understanding that bullying the woman is appropriate, is acceptable, is a means of correcting, is a means of teaching her, is a means of making her to understand. And so most men who abuse children, particularly the girl child or women, you will hear them say that is how they do it in our society. Of course, it's an aberration. It should not be, but they grew up knowing that that should not. And sometimes these women, these children who grew up to become men and are abusing women and children were raised by women. And so you will be looking for the missing point. Of course, not very far-fetched. Cultural norms, cultural norms, cultural norms. As the woman is raising the child, she is afraid of what might happen in the community if they know she sensitizes the child different to what the community expects in terms of making sure that the child does not bully a woman or bully a girl around them. And that for us is a core concern also. Then again, another causal factor that you will see around GBV issues is when children are allowed in the name of education to go to a school without a child protection policy, where there is no guideline, where there is no safeguarding principles that protect children. Every school I come in contact with in Oyo State, I always ask them one question: do you have a child protection policy, or a child safeguarding policy, or a gender protection policy? If you have any of these three, it suffices. And most times, most of the schools you go, you will hear they don't have, or they had, but they are trying to renew it. And when abuse is to take place, because the staffers do not understand what might happen if they abuse a child, or if they abuse their wives at home, you will see a staff in a school beat his wife mercilessly at home and come to the school to teach. Such a school will have a policy that reprimands that behavior. That reprimands.
Thank you, Dr. Marcus.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I must say you're so loaded, and if I just allow you, you go on and on. But there was something that you said that struck me before I allow others to contribute. There was a case of a lady who was engaged to a guy and was speaking to a counselor and said the guy does not love her. And the counselor said, "Why did you say that?" He said, "He has never lied to me. He doesn't even try to excite me to tell me that his father owns Cocoa House." And then she said, "He has never beaten me." And the counselor was asking, "Why do you want him to beat you?" He said, "It's normal. that a man that loves the wife, when the wife does anything wrong, he should beat her. You know, so talking about this issue of cultural norms and how strong it could be. However, let me allow one or two people that may also have some contributions, especially on the root causes and this myths and misconceptions. Please, if you have any contribution, you may speak up. However, please, we'd like you to send your name and where you are joining us from. That's the venue wherever you are that you have joined us online. We have more than 40 people online as we speak. So please introduce yourself in the chat box and then tell us your venue. So do we have anyone who wants to speak to that? The reality of gender-based violence.
Actually, hold on, I should continue.
No, hold on, Pastor Marcos. Let's one or two other people speak to that. Thank you. Yes, do we have anyone who wants to speak to that?
Can I say
okay,
something?
Dr. Mrs. Oluwakemi Ademola Remu, you may please speak.
Thank you. You know, I think in this society, beyond information, poverty is a major factor because the poverty level will determine the environment you will live in. Space is something we use to control violence at times. Once your house is gated, you've restricted access. So a situation where poverty is increasing in the land, people are living in very close environments, the same direction is what the violence will take. Yes, culture.
Okay, Dr. Aremu, maybe it's your network, your data, or where you're...
Especially, is the people that have access.
All right, thank you very much. I know that Barrister Wura Oluwa Ayodele wants to contribute also. She's signified from Women's Safe House. Yes, you may speak.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for this amazing session. And thank you, Pastor Marcos, for going over that. That was really wonderful. I just have a few things to add. I mean, a lot has been said already. When we talk about root causes, we've talked about poverty. We've talked about
disconnected.
Uh-oh, we have another glitch. We can't hear you again.
you hear me?
Okay, yes, you're just back now. So can you do that in just a minute? I think we're having challenges with network.
Okay, so I like to always try to disabuse our minds from the fact that our culture is bad, our religion is terrible. It is really about the people, the kind of practices, you know, that people continue to sustain, you know, in that culture. I'm not going to talk poverty because Pastor Marcos has talked extensively, you know, around that. But, you know, the idea that, for instance, I'm going to just give an example, the idea that women are subservient, you know, and I'm not even talking about marriage now, subservient in their communities, they are less than men, you know, that in itself is something that promotes, you know, violence, gender-based violence. The idea that now it's not even about women alone. As long as it's a female child, the child is expected to act in a particular way. So for instance, talking to a 2-year-old and saying, is this what you're going to do in your husband's house when you grow up? You know, you're already instilling a kind of behavior that child is supposed to exhibit. And so when that child doesn't exhibit that kind of behavior, of course, the response to that would be violent. Again, violence is not just physical. Violence is physical, it's psychological, it's economic. And most recently, we started to look at how violence can be technological too, meaning that it can be done even when you're not in a physical space with that person. A lot of people are experiencing technological violence and they don't even know they're experiencing it because they don't even understand the kind of technology that is being used to abuse them. And so it's our responsibility to continue to sensitize our communities as to what this kind of violence is about, and the fact that this kind of violence must be named. So naming, for instance, is one of the most important things for me when we begin to talk about violence, because many times I've talked to a group of people and it's when I started talking to them that they discovered, oh, I've actually been going through violence and I didn't even know I was going through violence, because they didn't even know that that thing that they were experiencing was violence. So naming,
Thank you, Oluwa.
giving people the language, for instance, to be able to understand what that is, and of course, making sure that our voices are heard. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Oluwa. Yes, the heat is on, and I appreciate everyone. Theo Mosinki wants to speak. However, I apologize. I may not allow you to speak to this until we get back to the question and answer segment so that we don't blow up our time. We'll just go straight to the third discussion, which has to do with the available interventions. We're going to be looking at the legal and policy intervention. And Mr. Afe Olarotimi will be speaking to that. What are the national and international frameworks, the role of enforcement and judicial officers, what are the social support systems from NGOs, shelters, communities, counseling services, and all the rest. So Mr. Afe Olarotimi, you have the first 10 minutes to please speak to that, and then we'll have some other contributions from other panelists and audience. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me. My name is not Afe Olarotimi. My name is Afe Olurotimi. Not Ola, is Olurotimi.
Okay, I apologize.
Hello, can you hear me?
For the typo, please.
No. I don't have a problem with that. Yes, you said 10 minutes. The available interventions you're talking about, Pastor, I was able to listen to Pastor Marcot a little bit because the line is not that clear. He spoke a little about that. And of course, the definition of gender and sex, I think, has been addressed before I came in now. But to cut the long story short, available interventions that we are exposed to, it's unimaginable, because oftentimes you see situations where when domestic violence takes place, the survivor does not really have the willing power to want the matter to be readdressed, probably even giving social support sometimes, or maybe you want to like, okay, you need a redress on this matter. And I'll give you, for example, I just came into the office now, and a particular Igbo guy who is married to an Igbo woman. Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Please go ahead. We can hear you. However, your video is off. So if you want us to see your face, you can come on.
Yes, I want my face to be seen. I'm not
so
masquerade.
Click your video.
I think I've done that.
All
yes.
Right, we can
you see me now? Yes, and like I said, I came in and I met this case on ground. It was on a Friday. There's this particular man who battered his wife badly. The batter is as good as when a car hits someone down, blood all over his faces, and you know. Then I said they should go and invite the man. They went after the man, arrested him, detained him since Friday till this morning. I came into the office only for me to find out that the same woman who told me on Friday that she wants this case to be taken to court, that this is not the first time the man has been assaulting her, both inside the house and outside the house publicly. Most of the times, while the children are present in their house. We agreed on that. Okay, on Monday, I said, if that is what you want, we'll do that for you. If that will bring a redress for you and make you comfortable. I came in this afternoon, and the same one is telling me that, Mr. Fair, you know what? The children, the last born has been so sick over the weekend. She can't stay because she doesn't have access to her father. The family friends came to meet me. As a matter of fact, she wants to take the man's bill. She wants me to just talk to the man. And I said, what kind of thing is this? And I noticed something immediately I came in. The daughter, the way and the manner the daughter was looking at me, it was as if I'm a devil. And that daughter is just like 8 years old. And I called the girl. I said, why are you looking at me that way? She kept quiet, she didn't say it. I said, you hate me because I locked your daddy up. And I said, what your dad did to your mom will your dad allow someone to do it to you? She said no. And I said, do you know, I also find out over the weekend that when they assaulted your daddy's junior sister in Onitsha, your father left here 6 o'clock in the morning to go to Onitsha and protect his own sister. Why is he doing it to your mom? And the daughter said, yes, that my father went after the sister. So when you look at the interventions there, it was the same girl, the same child that I used this afternoon to speak to the father, since the mother is saying she doesn't want the matter to be charged to court. We are helpless at that point. And I said, okay, I think there's a need for us to bring in social actors who can talk to you, can talk to the husband, and to be able not to assault over time. Because even if when you go back home, the possibility of this man to do the same thing is there. I said no, that you should just write undertaking. We are at that point when I left to come to join this panel. What am I saying is the intervention that we have been exposed to over time, it's so difficult for law enforcement agents to want to take proper redress for the survivor, because you have a lot of myths around it. A lot of some of them will be told that if you take the man to court, who is going to pay the bills of your children? You will see some will tell you that do you know, even in the Bible, to do that is a sin, and so on and so forth. So most of the interventions that we go into, the willpower for these survivors to want to take redress oftentimes make it difficult for law enforcement agents to want to take a redress for them. We are not saying that we want to disintegrate the family by going to court, but we on our own side, we feel that if taken to court, we make it to allow your factory brain setting to reset, so that you don't put all this the children within this marriage into problem. Because if you look at it, directly or indirectly, the children within this domestic violence are growing day by day, and they will begin to see over time that is a normal thing, and that is the generation of the domestic violence in a family setting. That the children begin to see it, that is a normal thing. Even though the guy will see that, like what Pastor Marcus said the other time, that the child will begin to say that when a female child has issues, the next thing to do is to hit that child so that the person can be corrected. So if I keep talking about interventions there, I will take a lot of time. I think I should start with, since you said you gave me 10 minutes.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Hello?
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Hello?
Amon, can you hear me?
The line is...
Okay, anyone in the house, can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
We can hear you.
All right,
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Olurotimi, can you now hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Now that you can hear me, I want to give you just like 2 minutes to talk about the innovative solutions that are available. Yes, this is real. Yes, there are myths surrounding it. Yes, you want to take action, and some of these obstacles and bottlenecks, religious, family, militating against the actions that you want to take, and they're not allowing for the smooth run of the interventions. So how do we overcome this? Can you just tell us in maybe just a minute, how do we overcome some of that?
If I have to suggest a way, like I said, what we have been exposed to over time in the course of trying to respond or intervening to issues like that, I think there's a need for the VAP law to be reassessed. Because the VAP law specifically deals with the domestic violence issue. There's a need for VAP law to be reassessed to see where there are lacunas there, and how or why is it that VAP law has not been able to address it 100%. In the sense that, in addition to the reassessment, or in the course of reassessment, it is when people come forward, when a particular survivor is being violated, either male or female, and anybody comes forward to want to appeal that the matter should not be properly taken care of or give a redress, then the law should also do with the person. Because I meant to be understand that in Bauchi, in their SGBV law, if you refuse to allow the case to go to court, you come to beg for a particular case, you also be charged to court. And I think that is a very good weapon. So if also we can, like we said, I was discussing with we discussed by Oga that there's a need for us to also reassess or to also call for an amendment for child rights law since 2006. Lagos State child rights law and SGBV law are not static. They are evolving over time with their law. They are changing it time to time. And what we have been exposed, the peculiarity in your state, when it comes to the gender-based violence, is different from what happens in Osun, in Lagos State. The need for us to address our domestic violence based on what we have been exposed to and where we can come up with solutions. The reality of it. Do you understand? And even though the law should also recommend that there should be a structure, a mechanism when domestic violence cases occur, that the survivor should also be given a one-stop center where psychosocial support can be given to, not an individual NGO providing a solution.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Thank you, Mr. Nurotimi.
You
hit the nail on the head. Thank you, Mr. Nurotimi. You've hit the nail on the head. And I like that part where you said that the VAP law should be updated in such a way that cases should be taken out of the hands of the victims, and then the government should handle them the way it is, no matter how it comes back to beg. And in some of the states where those even comes back to beg can even also be charged to court, you know. Let me allow maybe 2 or 3 people. However, if we cannot take your comment for now, please, you may wish to write it down so that you do not forget whatever you want to say. And we're still going to have another session for all of that. So some of the interventions that are available and how to ensure that they are enforced. Do we have people who wants to speak to that in the next few minutes? Maybe 30 seconds each. We just look at basically the innovative solutions that are available. Is anyone speaking to that? Is anyone speaking to that? Okay. Oh, Mrs. Oluwakemi Ademola, do you want to speak to that? But you are muted anyway. You have muted your line. Okay, so let's just go ahead. We cannot hear you, and I want to assume nobody's speaking to that for now. We've had a lot of people joining us from Enugu, from all over, from even outside the country. Permit me to just quickly mention Matthew Plosinki from Botswana. Akintoye is from Ibadan. Fashugba Tofumi Ibadan. Ayobami Ibadan. Bernard Salako Ibadan. We have someone from Delta State, that's Lois. We have Okechukwu from Enugu. We have Sir Pam, Sister Pam from Ibadan. We have Wuralu Ayodele, Women's Savers International. We have, she's from Ireland, and many more people. So please just keep your introductions coming in. We're going to move straight to talk about the prevention strategies. And this is where we have Reverend Sister Augustina someone sent a message that said we should drive home the point that there are laws, the Violence Against Persons Act law, the Child Rights Act law, and the Criminal Code, etc. All right, so we're going to look at what are the prevention strategies right now. And so Reverend Sister Augustina, the head of Caritas program, you'll have 10 minutes in the first instance, and then we can speak to that. Others can also speak to that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Reverend. Before I start speaking to the prevention strategies that are there, I would just like to mention again, like we've all been saying, that most time properly covered. I mean, sometimes you see people with physical bruises that you could see that this person has really been battered, but sometimes you may not even know, they may never tell anyone. And then sometimes it's done in such a way that over time, the victim begins to even feel it's probably because of what I did, ABC. Probably if I didn't do this, wouldn't have happened. That self-blame will begin to come, and which eventually leads to lack of self-confidence. And before you know it, the person will begin to develop low self-esteem. So these are some of the issues with gender-based violence. And that's why prevention, as they say, is better than cure. So how do we prevent this gender-based violence? I mean, there's no limit to what we can do, but there's a lot that we must do to ensure that we protect ourselves. And I think that's where the team of JDPC team for this gathering came from. Stand up for yourself against gender-based violence. There's a lot we can do as individuals, as a community, as a government, but I think that it begins first with the individual. There's this saying that the power people have over you is the power you give them. And for us to understand that and really work on ourselves, it's very important. So I would just like to begin that it is important that we get to know who we are as a child of God, created in the image and likeness of God. Equal with, I know some people will debate about equality, but holding our heads high and knowing that you're a special child of God, you're created in the image and likeness of God. And so you should not allow anyone tell you who you are or define yourself for you. I think that's where it will begin from. And it takes a lot. It's a lot of self-nurturing, a lot of self-awareness to get there. It's not something that happens overnight, especially when one is in a very abusive situation. And like some of us have mentioned already, one of the speakers said people could be going through abuse and not even know that they are being abused. And that's where some of peace activists saying would say that you awaken the happy slave. I think the term for them are happy slave. When someone is a slave and the person doesn't even know he or she is a slave, and it goes back to you just first and foremost getting to know who you are. Then I would like to take this back to family, parenting. How do we do our parenting? That has already come out in different speeches we had already. In the family, when you have a girl child and a boy child, and you see, I'm talking to women ourselves now, the way we raise our children, of course, raising children is not just a woman's job, it's both men, the man and the woman. But then in the family, you find out that so much attention is paid to the girl. Sometimes the boys are like the kings of the family. And this is a woman raising a child, and you have that disparity there. Boys can do anything and get away with it. Girls that be tamed, as someone already mentioned, as if you're taming them for marriage. Everyone, that parenting should be properly done. And the best thing you can do in your parenting is to infuse love in your children, raise them in love. And that's why it's a problem when husband and wife are there battering themselves in the presence of their children. You're causing a lot of damage. And so the best gifts you can give to yourself as a husband and wife is the love you share among yourself, because the children, you don't need to love, it's action, it's not words. So that has to be taken care of, that when you're raising your children, you make sure that it's done properly, that it's not one against the other. You make the man feel like a hero. You shouldn't cry and all of that. And then the woman is the weaker sex. We know that. But it's important that as we're raising our children, that we're feeding them with love, we're there for them, we give them all the care they need, so that they're not in a hurry to get married. And seeing marriage as an escape, all the evil in the house, all the harm that's happening there, all the uncomfortable. And that brings me to the second thing. I think it's one of the ways we could prevent this. And I'm saying this to our young ladies, both the men, that you're pregnant for someone does not mean that you must marry that person. Because most time when young girls find themselves in a relationship, one of two things happens, and the lady's pregnant. And sometimes they feel hooked. The society is going to laugh at me, and all of that. So the quickest way to fix it is just get stuck with that man. Because most times, especially when they come here, You like when you ask people, you find out it's not as if they just got married and the person started beating. It's been there. The clear hands of this abusive man or woman somehow it's there. But just because you feel that we've gone this far, let's just keep patching it off. Marriage shouldn't be patched. It's meant to be enjoyed and not endured. And so, even if you're pregnant for anybody, please, you can still leave that relationship if you know that it's an abusive relationship. And I'm saying this both, especially for our women. The men, it's easier for them. They can easily walk away. But the women, please, shine your eyes. You don't have to end in an abusive relationship, abusive marriage because you're pregnant. And then this thing of empowering yourself, whichever way, if you're not able to go to school, maybe the funding, we've been talking about poverty since, the money is not there to go to school. There are a lot of skills that you can learn. And sometimes it's good that you have the skills, have it, be empowered yourself, be enough in yourself. Enjoy yourself as a person, as an individual who knows who he or she is, who can do without any man or woman, that is independent in yourself. I mean, that you can fend for yourself before you begin to go into any marriage. It will help you to be able to prevent some of these abuses. And then I'm talking to everyone too, even for the marriage, the way you react when sometimes this abuse, it might not be there even when you're courting, but when you get married, the way you react the first time it happens will determine how it will continue. If you're able to say, you slapped me, and I've heard people say, the first time my husband slapped me, I left the house. Like I went home, he had to look for me. And you find out that it never happened again. But if they slap you, and then they come and give you a kiss, you take it, and I'm not saying you shouldn't forgive your husband, but the first time you receive that slap, you have to do something drastic. If you don't do it, it's going to continue. That's, for me, when you're already in the relationship, that's a preventive measure. You do something drastic so that somebody don't begin to see you as a punch bag. Yeah, he will let out all his anger or her anger because whatever has happened. So building yourself, and then the society, the family. I want to appeal. This is a passionate appeal to the families. One of the ways we can also prevent this when it's already happening, or prevent, and then when it's happening, is the family support. Most times when people bring their cases here to talk to us, tell us what they're going through, you find out that it's difficult to leave that abusive situation to prevent further harm rather, because there's no support anywhere. Like the example that Afe has given this morning, the woman who came to report, and everybody's begging, or not even begging, the family begin to, you took our son to civil defense, you took this action, and then the person begins to back out. And then if her own family, the support is not there for her family, it becomes very difficult. The girl is confused. That's what we're handling now. I mean, like severally, she has taken steps, went as far as her case being filed to court, and then she will not say no. So I'm begging families. One of my sister would say, as someone who is alive that is engaging in marriage, you need to be alive to be married. And then I would also like to go to the church line. There are some, they'll have the canonical law there. There's separation. If someone's life is at stake, that you don't stay there and die in a situation because the society says you should not leave. There'll be shame there. In my family, people don't leave their marriage. The mother, you hear the mothers telling them, I did not leave my husband, so you can't leave your own husband. We're not promoting the situation of marriages, as Afe has said, but you have to stay alive to be in that relationship. And I think that's it for now. Let's continue.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Reverend Sister Augustina, for bringing a lot of issues on. I have someone here who said gender-based violence is not an emotional issue. That's from Campaign Against, okay, was it? Okay, that's from Wura Oluwa.
In this place.
She said gender-based violence is not an emotional issue. It's a crime and should be addressed as such. Stigma against victims, survivors also needs to be addressed in communities to allow access to justice and adequate punishment for perpetrators. Stigma can come in many ways, including putting our personal opinions on issues such as divorce, pregnancy, etc., to frustrate victim survivors. Advocates also need to understand the cycle of violence and keep being updated on the ever-emerging, changing ways of forms that gender-based violence takes, e.g. technology-facilitated violence, both online and offline. Creating safe spaces for victims, survivors is critical, both online and offline spaces. All right, thank you. That's another side to it. I'm going to allow 2 more people to please speak to some of the prevention strategies that Reverend Sister Ofo spoke about, especially on policy level prevention, and in my own field, the roles of media. Very, very important. The roles of media, having engagements like we're having now on both terrestrial and online media, having campaigns, you know, everywhere. However, these days, a lot of those campaigns are calling for sponsorship, and JDPC is doing a whole lot, especially when projects come knocking. So what are the other things that we need to know? If I have a few more people, maybe just 2 people who wants to speak to that before we go to the question and answer and report survivor testimonies and all the rest. Anyone?
All right, sir. Can I just say something?
Okay, so what's the name, please?
All right, so very quickly, Marcus Williams is my name.
Okay, Pastor Marcus, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. I want to say that globally, the way the UN pushes for elimination of gender-based violence and all the conventions that surround elimination of gender-based violence as it relates to women is such that when you try to localize it in terms of ratification, a lot of conjectures come up, and country entities will tell you that in their country this works, that does not work, this does not work. And so to have a common understanding, there is something that is sacrosanct. And what is that? Survivors of gender-based violence that cry for justice are actually not crying for legal justice. My interface as a responder in Oyo State suggests that all the women we have tried to provide support to get, in quotes, justice, came back to say that what they wanted was to just warn the man, not prosecute the man. When we had sufficient evidence to prosecute and convict this person, they still insisted. And for me, it's a low area. But we realized that the NGO environment promoting or pushing for the implementation of the United Nations Transnational Organized Crime, on which GBV is also appended as a crime against persons, and to which the country government has enacted the Violence Against Persons Act, and which Oyo State has also ratified as a law. We realize that the supposed survivors of victims, we are not looking for the kind of justice we were pushing for. And so the NGOs were the one pushing. On the long run, the NGOs get angry with these victims and they step back. I feel that a holistic approach in terms of understanding GBV within contextual environment is very important. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor Marcus, for that. And it's so instructive to hear that. A lot of people that cry for justice actually do not want legal justice. Dr. Duakemi Ademola Remu, your hands are up.
Yes, thank you so much. You know, a lot has been said. What I'm thinking about, yes, we've had cases in court that were withdrawn. The fundamental issue, what we learned to do in my NGO is to ask the question, what do you want? You see, there are two tracks. Some people just want alternative dispute resolution. What they seek is dispute resolution, not litigation. So I asked, what do you want? Because it's going to be a long haul. Justice will not be, highly pressed. It will take time, determination. And those other people, the other side, they know that they can wear people out. So two questions. Do you want to punish the
Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Remu, your network is glitching again.
offender, or do you want a just want? Then the other thing is when you build resilience within the individual, when the individual begins to know that I am of worth and what this person.
Okay, we have a glitch again from Dr. Ademola Remu. Thank you very much. I think I got the point. You're saying that
has eternal consequences.
Be what is requested, not necessarily what the law says now. So asking the people what they want, but your line is breaking and going on and off. Thank you. Let's have Mr. Olurotimi Afe. Your hands are also up. So your comment in just a minute, and then we're going to go properly into the question and answer session.
Because most of the time they'll be for the abusers. Sincerely, if people have pursued legitimately abuse, you'll be surprised how.
Dr. Ademola Remu, can you hear me? Okay, Mr. Olurotimi, can you hear me?
How reduced it to be in our community now.
Dr. Ademola Remu, thank you.
Okay, sir.
Yes, your network is seasoned and there's a glitch, so we're not really enjoying it. But we got the point. I got the point. Okay, Mr. Olurotimi, can you hear me? Mr. Olurotimi, we cannot hear you.
I can hear you. I'm not.
Okay, Mr. Olurotimi, your line is muted. Your device is muted.
It's open.
Mr. Olurotimi, you're speaking, but you're on mute.
That's him. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Olurotimi, you're just unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, so please, can you speak to that in just a minute?
Yes, I just want to add to what Sister said the other time when she was addressing about the prevention strategies and what have you. She was trying to talk about how these matters can be readdressed before they occur and things like that. But I'm looking at it from the angle of international community, because I think international community are beginning to, what the approaches they've been using in terms of prevention has been top-bottom approach. Like I said in my the first time I spoke, I said the peculiarity of the Nigerian African system, the international community have not really, I'm not saying they've not done, but I don't think to a large extent they are putting it into consideration or to recognize it. And what do I mean by that is that if you put religious leaders or traditional leaders together and you bring the issue of gender-based violence, they begin to feel threatened. In most times, they feel threatened as if you're bringing equality with them, with them. And to a very large extent, it has also affected efficiency or effectiveness of gender-based violence for us to achieve results with it. And when you look at most of the policies of the international partners, has always been on female, child, and women. 80%, if you take into statistics, 70 to 80% of the programs they bring down there or we have has to do with gender. When it comes to gender, it addresses female and women. And they've forgotten that the same male, either male child, young male child that we are abandoning or we are not paying attention to, by giving capacity building to train them, to get them involved on how to live with a woman, on how to cope with a woman, how to behave with a woman, will still be the same person who will come and assault or batter that person you have been able to train or engage or provided prevention strategy for. So I'm looking at why where international community will begin to come down to the level of African setting, the Nigerian setting, bringing these characters together and be able to tell them that how do you want it to work within your system. I'm not talking about paper theory, because you look at the traditional leaders will tell you in Nigeria that I'm a king now, I'm a baale now. I cannot take my plate or take my food from the kitchen or take the water to rinse my hand away. I have to follow because of my reality. I'm forgetting that is a male. And when you look at the gender issue, it's not specifically meant that only a woman should be the one to do it. I don't know, maybe you get what I'm trying to say. Hello?
Yeah, your message is clear. Yes.
Yes, very well, Mr. Olurotimi. Mr. Olurotimi, we'll go what you were saying.
When I talk about religious leader, I mean inclusive with traditional leaders, these key stakeholders that are involved in this prevention, because they are part of the prevention mechanism that needs to be reorientated again. Because if you take them out and you give them these programs, honestly speaking, they reluctantly want to accept it. Maybe because of the faces or because of the things they are giving to them, they play along that they have accepted it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Olurotimi. I know Fola wants to speak. There's a Fola in the house, but I have a message that says justice means different things to different people. For some, it means gaining agency over themselves. And for others, for some others, it means gaining social justice, not necessarily through the court system. I guess that was one of the things that Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Remon said, asking the people what do they really want. Fola, do you still want to speak to this issue?
If you are signing for me, you put FA. You're a two-star. You can sign it. You don't have to sign for me.
Mr. Olurotimi, please, can you mute?
Since you are the one handling the case, you can sign for this.
Mr. Olurotimi, can you mute? Mr. Afe, please mute yourself.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Fola, please, you have the floor. We cannot hear you, Fola. Please check your device. Are you muted?
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so are you raising an issue or speaking to some of the things we've discussed or asking a question? You are muted again.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Very well. You are now unmuted.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, first and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Afe for his contribution. Let me start from there. But my own view is that I think one of the messages we need to take to the grassroots is that gender-based violence or issue of gender roles in families should be something you should do, either you are a male or you are a female. Okay, so if I'm a male, I should know how to cook. I should know how to fetch water. Either it should not be a gender thing. I'm saying those are messages we should take to the grassroots. So it should not be a gender thing to do roles in the family and all of that. That's number one. Now, let me speak to the law. Some of the speakers have said we have the law in place, and I would have loved a lawyer to be on the panelist so that the lawyer can speak, to some of these points. Now, the important thing now is how do we enforce the law? How do we enforce? And I'm happy Mr. Afe is there and is a law enforcement agent, and he can answer this question. How many cases of gender-based violence has been successfully prosecuted at the family court? How many, if we have? So it means that something is wrong somewhere with some set of people. Okay, for instance, and Mr. Fair can bear me witness to some of those things if I am lying. Now, a particular society will come and say, this person has raped my daughter, or this person has dealt with my daughter in the area, or any of those things. But now, come to court and come and testify. Come to court, come and bear witness to what you have said. They will say they are setting it at home. So you can now see where the societal values are now affecting these issues of gender-based violence. So yes, the law is there, but even if people like Mr. Afe wants to prosecute, if people like Mr. Afe wants to arrest, before the matter will go to conviction, there must be a witness that must be ready to come and testify in court. Whereas our societies don't have those people that will come and testify for. And these are the issues we need to talk about. If these things are not into place, the laws will just be there just for no reason. And that is why where I want us to take our campaign to sensitize and enlighten people the essence of coming to talk when issues of this infringement of laws are taking place in our society. For crying out, if you come to court, nobody will tell you are coming to court because you are a male or you are a female. But you are coming to court to come and say what you have seen or what is wrong with you. And if you don't talk, the court cannot give judgments. If you don't talk, the laws will not be enforced. And that is my point to everyone that is there on the panel and everyone that is listening on this section. The court is meant for us to come and give evidence when there are all these cases of gender-based violence in any form. Because I can hear doctor also the other time, she was speaking from the point of persons with disability, and that's so fantastic. But in every place, that culture of if you see something, you must say something, we must imbibe it. That is the only way we can make these laws to work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fola. Now, I am going to be asking a question from what you just said, and I think I'm going to direct it to Mr. Afe Olurotimi because you are a law enforcement agent. Now, definitely the issue of the fear of consequences has come out so glaringly. Witnesses are scared that if they come over, there will be consequences, maybe family, religious, as it has been said. So how do we address the fear of the witnesses coming out to talk, coming out to speak? Now, meanwhile, I have one here that says, there is need for more advocacy through the religious groups, churches and mosques, as well as communities where these things happen. It's not as if there are no laws governing these vices, but the people involved in administering justice. Gender-based violence shouldn't be restricted to the girl child alone because the male child is not in focus today. Who is not in focus today grows up to become a husband tomorrow, and he's involved in battering his wife, possibly because of the family background and the neglect growing up. We should rather focus on the two sexes or gender. So I think it starts from the law too. Oyo State now has a violence against person prohibition law, not necessarily mentioning violence. And from the conversation we've also had, that the issue about gender should be dropped absolutely. Mr. Fola also spoke to the issue of just not allowing gender to dictate disparity in the home. Okay, so these are the issues that are popping up. However, Mr. Afe Olurotimi, yes, please, can you quickly speak to the fear of the consequences by the witnesses? So how do we address that? Mr. Afe, did you hear me? Huh? Mr. Fair, did you hear me? Is there?
Hello?
Did you hear me?
No. Please, can you come again?
Okay, so the question is, we've been able to establish that witnesses are scared of the consequences of their coming out. How do we address their fears?
I said it the other time when I was speaking the first time. I said one of the ways or how we can go about it, first of all, reassess our VAP law. Like you said, somebody said we have laws on ground. Yes, we do have laws on ground, but how effective are these laws? If you don't call for reassessment of these laws, we cannot know to what extent they have been able to address the issue they have been established for. Like I said the other time, I took example from Bauchi, that if you come to appeal, to beg, the law will deal with you. So when you are aware that the law will deal with you when you take that position, you will shift back. You will shift back. You will not want to come forward at all. So if you don't reassess the VAP law, which specifically deals with gender-based violence issues, then we can't know how to go about it. You talked about prosecution of the gender-based violence. If you are talking about gender-based violence, you should also be know how to be specific. Because if you are talking about prosecution of battery cases, assault cases, physical assault cases, it's different from when you're saying that child defilement cases. So if you're talking about child defilement cases, of course, yes, we go to court on that. We have, at least I can speak to you in your state, we have over 70%, 75% of cases are being prosecuted when it comes to child defilement cases in your state family court. I can say that categorically. The other ones that are not taken to court was likely because the witnesses or the complainant is not coming forward. When they just come and talk, I said that to go and do medicals. In the process of doing their medicals at the state hospital, the next thing they come to tell is that they have called them, they have said they want to go. Oftentimes, they also even give themselves money, which makes the case to be difficult. And when trial commences to go to trial for the ones that have been prosecuted to family court and trial commences, you find out that for the survivor to come to court becomes a very big problem. So the prosecuting counsel will begin to have issues to present them. So oftentimes what the prosecuting counsel try to do, I might not be able to discuss it on air now, because we've also sat down to look at how and what do we do to ensure that our case are not being frustrated when we want to close our cases. So we came up with a strategy, and it's been working, but that has to be private because I don't want to talk about it on air now. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Aremu also said that the issue of male and female has been taken care of in the VAP law. Now, I want to open the floor so that we can ask questions. I want to open the floor so that we can ask questions. And we're going to be looking at reports and concerns from the audience right now, especially if we have anybody in the house who is also ready to give us testimonies of how they survived the gender-based violence. So please, you may come up to speak right now. Testimonies of how you survived gender-based violence. Can we have reports now? You may wish to speak to that. Questions, or you want to share your thoughts and testimonies of how you survived gender-based violence. Do I have people speaking now? Okay. Somebody here said, the family court delays judgment. That's from Dr. Luakemi Ademola Remu. And then she said, okay, I already read gender-based violence already takes care of males and female. And so do we have more questions? Questions, thoughts, comments? Now, please, our panelists, I'll still have to get back to you so that you give us a brief summary of key points as takeaways. Maybe just two minutes. Okay, Tolu Lope Awokunle. Tolu Lope Awokunle, are you still there? You can speak right now. Okay, thank you, Tolu Lope. You can speak.
Hello. Apologies. This is the face of Tolu, but the voice of Barrister Dolapo.
Okay.
So thank you. So I just want to chip in a few things. One from what Barrister Fola said, and also to what Mr. Afe said. Now I would share two experiences of what I witnessed in court myself. A few years back, before the family court was actually created, I witnessed a case that had to do with rape. Now, the father of the victim was in court. I think they are from the eastern side of Nigeria. The case was meant for trial. Unfortunately, the victim was not in court, but the father came, and the court asked to ask, where is the victim? The case is meant for trial. Then the father spoke and said, for reasons best known to them, they are not going to allow her to come and testify in court. The court was, well, the hands of the court were tied, but the court had to ask why. Then they said they are from their own side. Things like that should never be made to come into public light because it will tarnish her image, it reduces her chances of getting married, and so many things that were actually valid. Because if you actually listen to what the man was saying here, from their side, things like that, and because it has to do with her dignity and all. So they said no, she won't be coming to that. Moreover, the family of the victim, I mean the defendant, was already reached out to them. They begged, they did this and that. That was how the case was frustrated. Now, one. Most recently was in family court, or just a family court. I think a man was arraigned for child molestation and indecent assault. Now, the victim involved is his stepdaughter, his own stepdaughter. The mother to that child was not the one running around. Now, this is where it gets funny. It was in the course of the interview and all, another man was now advising her that if you want to frustrate the case, to buttress what Mr. Afe said, though, just make sure you've written your letter of withdrawal and make sure you don't come to court anymore. That the court will be forced to strike out the case. That it might take a while, but then the court will have to strike out the case when there's nobody coming up. That statement was sad. So, in addition to what Mr. Afe said, that yes, and then doctor also said family court could be slow. See, the old judiciary system can be slow, but when victims and when families of victims are not even ready, you see, I think maybe I might be mistaken. Maybe I'm not gone through our laws properly. There should even be punishment for where the family of the victim are also the ones now trying to put a clog in the wheel of the cause progress. Because is it the same society that will turn around and say, after all, they took the matter to court and nothing came out of it? So advocacy should continue. We should, there are laws are there. Let's get it clear. The laws are there. Is it from the Constitution? You go to the Criminal Code, you go to the Violence Against Person Prohibition Law and Act, you go to the Child Rights Law. All these laws are already there. And the beautiful thing is ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So if all these laws are there and then enforcement is still an issue, it means we still have a lot of work to do on the issue of gender-based violence. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you, Barrister Dolapo on Tolu Lope's page. Okay, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu said that the cost of litigation is on the NGOs or the complainant. Okay, so if something also has to be done about that, and that still goes back to the VAP law, who bears the cost of the litigation? Now, I also have here grievances handling procedures and conflict resolution processes should be emphasized in school curriculum. So Dr. Ademola Aremu is saying that it should be stepped down into the school curriculum schedule so that it will be taught. Most people do not know what it means to seek justice. And then later she said the cost of litigation is on the survivors or the NGOs. We want to take few testimonies. We want to take few testimonies of how anyone out of the audience survived gender-based violence. How did you survive yours? You've been through it. How did you survive yours? Is there anyone who likes to speak to that? Okay, Bernard Salako said, how do we address cultural beliefs that put a man above the woman
Maybe,
in some cultural settings? How do we address the cultural beliefs?
Let me, okay.
Sister Augustina, can you speak to that? How do we address cultural beliefs? Even though you are more in the religious sector, but how do we address the cultural beliefs?
I am also from a culture.
Oh, yes.
It's just to say that I'm from a culture. Some of these beliefs that we term cultural sometimes are human-made and not really cultural per se. Culture, now what do I mean? What I mean is that the culture also evolves. If especially those ones that we know are harmful to humanity, they can change, and some have changed. So that excuse that we give and that we gave in the past and are still given in some instances should never be, it shouldn't be an excuse to continue to torment anyone in the name of culture. And that's why we've talked about laws. Some cultural practices have changed, especially with regards to marriage. For instance, where our lawyers in the house here can help me speak to that law. Where in the past, the woman, for instance, does not have right of inheritance or things, some basic rights that should be there for the woman, and that we term it culture because it's culture. Then you're not entitled to certain things. The family are sharing land. It's there in the culture that women don't get, and so you will not get. That some of these things are changing. Thank God it's there in the law in some places, and that shouldn't be used as an excuse. So any culture that is not friendly to anyone, especially our women, who should rally around and find a way of saying no to such cultures. It has happened in the past. People have been able to say no, but this can't happen. I have an aunt who, this cultural practice when a woman loses her husband and then you are blamed for the death of the man. And that's why I still go back to saying that it's good for people to know the power that they have in themselves. So the day she lost her husband, and the day of the burial, I mean, there were already stories talk here and there. So she came home to bury her husband, and then that day they said the police and the army were everywhere, and it kind of became a talk of the town that she buried her husband with soldiers everywhere. And that's the way someone who has grown to fight for her right, fight for herself, that you don't just leave yourself so vulnerable out there that in the name of culture. And that's nobody came out to talk about culture or anything. That was how the husband was peacefully buried. And that was the end of all those cultural practices, funny things that would have happened that day had she come alone with no protection or anything. But all those people talking about culture and all of that, none of them came out. Everybody stayed clear. And that was how the man was buried, and everything went well peacefully. So people have to find a way of protecting themselves. Until today, nobody did anything to her. And so culture should not be used as an excuse. We know that there are cultures there, but it's us humans that can work on these cultures, change the one that need to be changed, adapt the ones that are good, that are friendly to human being, and throw away those ones that are really inimical to any human being. So that's the much I can say there.
Okay, thank you very much for speaking to the issue of culture. Someone actually asked the same question in another way, especially when it has to do with the eastern part of the country, where when bride prices are paid, the man believes that the woman has become a property, and he paid for her, and so he can pounce on her at the slightest provocation, if any, or even if the lady decides to talk, he can silence her. And I think that something also has to be done about the perspectives of some of the cultures that charge you exorbitantly for bride price, and it's almost like selling your daughter away to the family. Sister Augustina, you shook your head?
No, I'm not. Yeah, not shaking my head and I'm not agreeing with you. I said it already. Any culture that is not human being friendly should be thrown away. And I mean, that's it doesn't make sense at all. I know some men think they have that right over their wives because they paid bride price. And that goes back to tell you that there's something lacking there, an understanding that should be there, that this is my second half, my best half. We're there together as friends and lovers, not as Lord and servants. I mean, you can't buy her. You can't. So whatever you paid there is traditional right that you did. And I think it should be understood from that perspective. That's why I'm shaking my head.
Okay, thank you, sister. I also understand that there's someone that joined the conversation. It's possible you have seen someone, a white guy, and he's trying to private chat people personally. Please, that is not authorized. It's not from us. It's not from the host. It's not from JDPC. So please be aware of anybody trying to private chat you or send other messages other than on the issue of our discussion. Okay, so we're still waiting for testimonies. I still want testimonies of how some of the audience, anybody in the audience, you survived gender-based violence. How did you do it? I want us to share your thoughts. Or maybe we still have one or two questions before we come back to our panelists providing insights and takeaway messages on the program today.
I can tell.
Okay, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu.
Yes.
I hope your network will allow you now, so speak to that. There's even a glitch already.
Everybody, every child should be empowered by their fathers before they go into marriage. Then engagement. For example,
Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu, we can't hear you again.
In the Yoruba culture.
Okay, you're back.
I said in the Igbo culture. In the Igbo culture.
Network is terrible.
Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu, that network is still a challenge where you are.
You have they've tried. Can you hear me, sir?
Oh, yes, you're back now.
Yes, the in-laws, they perpetrate a lot of violence. In fact, so many families have been destroyed because of in-laws.
Okay, so Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola,
So
we're
one
just going to
method,
allow you
oh,
to
there are many
chat.
avoidance.
Dr. Remu, please just chat us. The network is so bad. We want to really enjoy the flow, but you keep going and the network keeps breaking. I know you're trying your best. That's why you're even moving around. Even now there's a glitch again, and it's just like
interesting. Okay, let me.
Please chat us. I'll be willing to read your thoughts. Thank you. All right, can we have more testimonies? All right, so if we're not having more testimonies and people that want to talk about how they survived gender-based violence, or you intend writing, please write. I'm going to read. All right, Dr. Aremu, you just wrote surviving in-laws. You were talking about the issue of engagement, and you were talking about empowering the child knowledge-wise, emotional stability and counsel, impacting wisdom, and all the rest for much more than survival, but being significant in relationships that the children will enter into very much later on. Let me come back to Pastor Marcus. Pastor Marcus, I'm going to be giving you 5 more minutes to tell us what will be our takeaway for today. Yes, Pastor Marcus, thank you. Your picture is very much better now.
Yeah, I changed. I was doing an interview in the other room for some persons, and I had to change so I don't disturb them, and I had to move in here. I'm in Ekiti, for instance, for you to understand.
So you have 5 minutes, please.
All right. So my expectation to everyone, inclusive of organizers, ensure that activities towards stemming the tide of GBV across spectrum is holistic one in terms of prevention. You cannot take away that underlying impact prevention plays in eliminating GBV. When you prevent it, then it doesn't come up. When it comes up, you can't repeat. But what you can do to support palliatively that the victims or survivors recover, and that takes a period of time. 2, as a holistic response, please take this strongly. We have protocols in country, in Oyo State, that protect persons from getting into conflict with their partners, with their spouses, with their children, or violating the right of another, regardless of culture, regardless of the societal opinion about the issue. Once it violates the right of another person, then it's a violence that must be reprimanded by the law. 3, holistically, you must also understand that the survivor has a life of his or her own, and they know what they want. I've interfaced with children as young as 6 years, telling me that they are tired of what we are doing. I've interfaced with women telling me that they are tired of what we are doing, that they just want their life back. They are not interested in killing anybody or doing anybody anything. They just want their life back. And so we had to give them a buffer opportunity for them to get their lives back. I am sure sister can attest to that. Regardless of who the perpetrator is in your state, once it is reported, we don't care to know your status in society. We come after you and we make sure the needful is done. And we do it holistically until justice is served. And by justice, sometimes it could be arbitration. Most times it could be litigation. Having said this, I'd like to close my words by saying, sister, we are grateful. Thank you for the opportunity. All the other persons that spoke, I'm grateful. Your comments are well heard of, and we trust that we'll work well towards protecting the rights of women, children, boys, and girls in Oyo State. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pastor Marcus, for giving us that holistic kind of brand. And I'm going to allow Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Remu to speak now. I hope your network will allow you. Your bandwidth, I think, is a bit low, but then you can speak to us now. Before you speak, Tolu, Michelia said, higher education, which is my opinion, is the most sustainable form of empowerment and should not be what? Okay, this is what
Yes,
Tolu said.
definitely.
Higher education, which in my
Yes,
opinion is the
definitely.
most sustainable form of empowerment, should not be beyond the reach of women. If women are able to take financial responsibility for themselves, I believe gender-based violence will reduce. All right, so let's come to Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola.
Thank you very much. Yes, education, that is information, and then a support structure is what we help women. But I'm also thinking that it's really powerful. Then poverty. I keep talking about poverty because you'll be shocked. The idea of buying people, owning people is coming from poverty, where a rich man feeds the family and says, therefore, I'm taking your child away, or where people are not sent to use. People should not marry them. Emotional intelligence should be taught to girls from primary school on. Please, if a guy is rough, don't marry him. Human beings learn. If a man knows that if I'm rough, nobody will marry me. Don't you think that will reduce the women people stealing their soul from them? This inability to want to punish. That is why we said it's always multidimensional and multifactorial, because you do not hate the person. What you hate is the action that the part of conciliation, and then part of the sentencing should be the people going. They should sentence them to counseling. Yes, counseling, proper counseling, and then the state should monitor. I think when they think it's going to be that way, we'll have more, because we have many cases in court and they are not coming to any judgment yet. Thank you for this opportunity.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ademola Aremu. We tried to stay with you this time, despite the fact that the network glitch was just coming on and off, but we're able to pick education, information, support structure, emotional intelligence, punitive measures should not be seen as you know, a terrible thing, and then people should be sentenced to counseling, like you said.
Yes.
Mr. Afe Olurotimi, please, can we have your takeaway? And in the next 5 minutes, you just want to give us the takeaway that you want us to go home with. Yes, you've been speaking so passionately to us. That's the 2IC of NSCDC, focal person for the Anti-Human Trafficking and Child Protection Unit, NSCDC, your state. Mr. Afe, are you still there? Mr. Afe, I can see you, but you are muted and your video is off. I want to be sure you can hear me. Mr. Olurotimi? Mr. Olurotimi? Okay, I'm not sure Mr. Olurotimi can hear us. And so let me go to Reverend Sister Augustina Eberiofo. Please, what will be our takeaway? Give us a few more insights in the next 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Before I give my takeaway, I would just to buttress part of what I've said before. One of us was supposed to speak to us today, one of the survivors. And I don't know what's happening, but I have a permission to share a bit of her situation, and I'm actually channeling it towards.
That would just be very fine, because I called for testimonies. Yeah. I didn't see anybody. So, but that would be nice. You can share with us and then
Yeah.
we'll extend your time to do that.
So channeling that towards what we can do to help anyone who is on this issue, who is being violated, abused as a result of agenda. So this lady, I mean, we received her from here, and she actually has no one. I'm saying this because of the importance of the support system that would help anyone fight this evil. She has no one here in Ibadan. A friend who has been very supportive to her sent her to us, and we followed up her case. That the team, Pastor Marcus is aware of this because we worked on that case together with rapid response team. This one was not even, I mean, no talking of maltreating somebody because he paid bride price. There was no bride price this particular case, but they just happened to be living together and there's a child involved. And you know, this subtle, we've talked about how abuse is perpetrated. It can be subtle, it can be emotional, blackmailing and all of that. The person will be wondering, is it my fault? What am I not doing right? I think that was what the picture of a situation. Until eventually, this her friend who saw clearly that this lady is being kind of helped. The friend eventually, sorry, I had to one bit. I was locked out. The friend eventually realized that what's happening to this girl is an abuse, and still began to educate her on what's happening to her, especially with regards to the mismanagement of the business that she was running together with her partner. Encouraged her to get a record, the proper way to do business, have everything written, buttoned down. If he is spending out of it, have whatever he has taken written down. And that's what she started doing. Eventually, it turned out she dawned on her that she was not actually being wasteful or mismanaging the business, just the way they've been eating out of the business, the guy too also collecting out of the business, and at the end of it, being the one who runs down the business. So with what she did, she was able to record, and at the end of the day, that guy was owing 100 and something thousand naira from that business. And then the friend advised her, don't let him collect anything again until he pays for the one he has collected. And that's how the trouble started, the beating started. All this while it was like smooth, blame game and all of that, but it was as if she was wisening up. I couldn't collect anything from her again, and that's the beating, really like real battering started. And eventually, with our intervention, she's acted in the relationship, and I want to thank the Safe Haven initiative here too. We also worked together when she needed to, because thinking about part of what makes these victims withdraw, apart from the family pressures, that it takes a lot of funding to pursue some of these cases, even with all our support. I mean, she's not going to depend 100% on us. She's already out of the man's house. How she's going to be eating and all of that. But this friend of hers was really very supportive, took her in. The first time she left there, we had to put her in a shelter home, the Safe Women Safe Haven Initiative. I hope I'm calling the name correctly. Where she stayed a month, at least that first period. And now, as we speak now, she's still looking for accommodation of where to stay. We'll see what we can do to help her. So it's expensive. As for someone who has not have it up here, who is looking at, go to the police, to run around for police, anything you have to pay. And thank God from JDPC we were able to take care of all of that. And that helped her to really follow through. That like enough is enough. Thankfully, with the intervention of the police, we've been able to negotiate how they will do their co-parenting. By the way, Pastor Marcus will still follow up that case because that guy is actually the fault. I hope you're hearing me. But at least she's happy. At first, she wasn't seeing her child again. The guy took the child away. She couldn't see her child, and she was really traumatized, like feeling everything was like my child, sent text, voice message, everything. How do I meet my child? But thank God with this intervention, now she could see her child. And she has come to that stage where she feels, I think I'm fine. At least I get to see him. She's not so much worried again. I'll get to see him and he's fine. And so she's picking up her life and moving forward. And she was able to do this because there was a lot of support. In fact, this guy even had the guts to beat this lady up, detained her in the police station. And I was not around, and I felt so bad, so upset. I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I had to call our lawyer here with our team workers. They went there, but I was so impressed. Talking of community support, the kind of community support she got, that her friend was there. They had the neighbors from the partner's house. I mean, up to, I wasn't even around, but up to 6 persons were there, brought food for her the next morning. I mean, what other support could she ask for? I was so impressed when I heard the number of people who came for her release that day. And so these individuals, they need support from all of us, from their family, from the society, from the government. It takes a lot of funding. And that brings us back to the team, the world team for this year's 15 days activism, which says the Orange the World. Where is this? Orange World, fund, respond, collect. Yeah. Orange the world, fund, respond, prevent, collect. I think it's prevent, I missed out. So we all need to do a lot. We need to find a way to find support and funding for these cases to be able for these women to follow through. Sometimes they look at the financial implication. By the time they go to police station 2 times, go to civil defense, they get tired. And then you know what court process is like in Nigeria. You have to keep going and going. Like sometimes when they come to us, we prepare their minds. It's not, sometimes they think it's just immediate. You go to court and everything ends. It don't end as fast as that. It's an ongoing thing, and it takes a lot. It takes off. You have to be emotionally stable somehow to be able to follow through the going and coming back. This lady at some point will tell me, sister, I'm tired. I'm tired, but like, don't worry, go with you, you know. So that's a great step. And then this collect, we collect everything. We could collect information, data that will inform policies that will help everyone to be on board. And of course, that's Orange the World. I think they say it started in US. Bringing out that color orange, a bright future for persons who have been in these situations, that's a bright future for them. That no matter what you've been through, no matter no matter what life has meted out on you, that there's a bright future there. And so I'd like to end it there. And I encourage all of us, everyone, in whatever way you can, to people around you, especially to report. Some of them might not have the energy, the willpower to report, but someone needs to help them. In the case of this, my friend, it was her friend who helped her. In fact, it was that friend who brought that. The first day they came to office, 2 of them came together. You know, so that kind of support is very important, and it will help to be a long way. Thank you.
Oh, wow, thank you very much, Reverend Sister Augustina. And we'd like to apologize to some of you that experienced glitches, and especially those that were locked out. Incidentally, my sister was also locked out, so she has to use the system right here. And we are coasting home, actually. Thank you for bringing the testimony to light. And that is very, very encouraging that things are happening, and it's not yet uhuru, but it's work in progress. I wrote something somewhere here. I said that the law should keep emerging. It's not the final brand of the law. It's so many things can still be submitted, and work can still go on. We can keep improving. We can keep going to our state houses of assembly, National Assembly, and asking them, and keep asking them to please do something. Who is that? Who? Okay, let me see the name. Okay, Barrister Adenike. Oh yes, I was going to call her because she's actually going to be giving us closing remarks. But if you have some other things you want to say before the closing remarks, Barrister Adenike Ibitara, please, let's have you now. Yes, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola said jingles can help. I've said that about media, you know, when I was talking about my own constituency, which is the media, things and jingles. Okay, so Dr. Barrister Nike Bitara, please, let's have you.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, the moderator and the panelists and everyone who has joined. What can I say? It's been a very fruitful discussion, and what I hope is that we have all been, let me say, encouraged to do more than what we are doing now. Like someone said, if you see something, say something. We must also be preachers or advocates of change in culture and norms that engender or that encourage violations of the rights of persons, especially those that are vulnerable amongst us, children and women and maybe persons with disabilities. So I want to, I don't know if I'm giving the vote of thanks as well. So I really want to appreciate all the speakers, Mr. Cosmos, Mr. Afe, Mrs. Aremu, and the other father, the host, and then Sister Ofo for putting all this together. And I hope that as individuals and as organizations, we can take steps and really collaborate. Let's make better use of the task force that Oyo State has to really fight against violence against persons, and especially female women and girls and persons with disabilities. So I just want to appreciate everyone. A lot has been said. I don't really have to say anymore. There are laws, let's use the laws, and let's encourage people. And the sad thing why most times prosecution does not progress is because this violence takes place within the domestic center. And because it's done by close persons to the victims, it's always very difficult to pursue prosecution. We hope that with time and with evolving culture and all that, that Nigeria will be able to really, really overcome to a greater extent the issue of gender-based violence. I want to thank everyone and wish you a happy day.
All right, thank you, Barrister Adenike Ibitara. I hope you know that I was calling you before we started the meeting to tell you that we're going to be together today when I saw your name. Okay, so we'll speak after the program. Well, so much has been said and key points have been made. Take-homes have also been given to us. We all have to say no to sexual and gender-based violence. We have to unite to end abuses, no matter what front they bring, political, economic, and then we should allow the female gender to be empowered. We should be a voice that ends violence against women. And the roles of the religious or faith-based organizations in combating gender-based violence has also been so much stress, a lot to take home. I think I have Mr. Olurotimi here now. Do you have something in the next 2 minutes? Oh, you're gone again. All right. Okay. So the scars from emotional abuse could be unseen, but the way it is, they run very, very deep, and sometimes they can even be passed on to children if we do not take care. So we may be engendering our next generation. Access to justice should be taken very seriously, and technology should not be spared. JDPC has told us that we should stand up for ourselves against gender-based violence. They actually say stand up for yourself against gender-based violence. And the national theme says unite to end violence against women and girls. Today is day 15. Tomorrow it ends at day 16. And we hope that we keep speaking to this. It's just an ongoing conversation. It shouldn't end at all. Strategies should evolve. We should stand bold wherever we are in our spaces to prevent gender-based violence. And the males should not be left out, you know, and we should take these messages to the grassroots that there's no disparity the gender should not dictate disparity in handling of events or affairs, even right from the home. I'm going to ask Mrs. Yetunde Ayeni to please give us the vote of thanks, officially. Mrs. Yetunde Ayeni. Please speak, Mrs. Yetunde Ayeni. Speak, yes.
Okay, please, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yetunde Ayeni from
Good
Caritas
afternoon.
Department. Yes, I want to express my sincere gratitude to the organizers for hosting such a fantastic and informative webinar. I've learned a lot, and we're so happy that this happened during the 16 days of the activism. Yes, I also want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed panelists. That's Pastor Marcus Williams, Dr. Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu, and Mr. Fe Olurotimi. Thank you so much for your participation and your insightful comments. We are so grateful. And to our moderator, thank you so much. You really made this very interesting for us. And also to the director of JDPC, Reverend Father Charles Ajibaye. Thank you, sir. Thank you to our HOD, that's Reverend Mr. Augustine Alfo. Thank you for this. We are so grateful for this. And thank you to our participants. Thank you for making this quite collaborative, not just one-sided, for your questions, for your comments, and our take-home too from this. Thank you so much. Please always refer people to JDP. Everyone that's going through any form of abuse, we are always open.
Okay, thank you. Yetunde, Mrs. Yetunde Ayeni, for thanking us. Specifically, I'd like to recognize those who have been very, very quiet and have been listening to us silently. Omobawumi Iyayodele from Women's Safe House Sustenance Initiative, Omobola from UK, Tolu Shelia from South Africa, Wuraolu Ayodele from Ireland, Sister Pam from Ibadan, Okechukwu from Enugu, Sister Lois from Delta State, and Bernard Salako from Ibadan, Ayobami Ibadan, Fashuba Tofumi Ibadan, Akintoye Adereti Ibadan, and Matteo Plosini from Botswana. It's been a great engagement. But I don't want to repeat the vote of thanks. And everyone, yes, I could see Admi, Tolulope, Ajimo, Fumilayo, yes, Barrister Ibetara thanked us, Omobola, Oluwabusola, while Adewale Refi, I cite you, Titilayo, Mutmaina, Hana Dada, Tolulope Okule, Temitope Fagbola, Angelina Sheon Akintola, Folari Oluwatosin, Charles, Rachel, Patrick Johnson, Victoria, Arasomi Michael, Jerome, Bernard, Edwin Phillips, and Pam Ihotu, and Uraluwa Ayodele. Thank you. But I'm not attempting to repeat vote of thanks. Well, we've come to the end of the discussion for today. As I've said, it's ongoing. It's a special webinar on gender-based violence, and the world theme has been Orange the World. Fund, respond, prevent, collect. And Sister Afua has spoken to that, what it means to orange the world. For JDPC, we are saying stand up for yourself against gender-based violence. So let's stand together against gender-based violence. Next year, we're still going to be having another days of activism. What are the programs outlined by JDPC? You said something next week?
We'll say that when the time comes.
Okay, so so next year is going to be another anniversary, but it's an ongoing discussion, and when the time comes, JDPC is going to invite you again for another roundtable or village square meeting. whichever one, all of them. But don't forget, especially for those that have access to media, let the campaign roar, let it spread, get to the communities, the grassroots, and let this message be on. Nobody should fear or be scared to witness. The laws should be strengthened. And then I, on behalf of the Justice, Development and Peace Commission, I wish you Merry Christmas, gender-based violence-free Christmas, violence-free Christmas, and a beautiful year. Thank you all for your support. God bless you. That's from Udu Salam. The closing prayer is going to be said by Mrs. Queen Fashuba. Mrs. Fashuba, if you can hear us, please come on for the closing prayer. Mrs. Queen Fashuba.
Yes, thank you. Shall we pray? Let us give thanks to the Lord for how fire has been with us. We planned, we are able to do it, and nothing obstructed it. We thank God for those who organize, for those who listen, even for those who could not listen, but we hear later about the thing we had. We pray God to continue to be with us, to continue to direct and empower us, strengthen us, and give us the grace to do His will all through our life. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Thank you very much.
Is Father Charles Ajibaye still in the house? That's our amiable, delectable chief host, director of JDPC. All right, thank you, Father Charles. Please give us your words and benediction for departure.
Thank you very much. So obviously start by thanking everyone also. I mean, Mrs. Queen already said the closing prayer. So, but I know that I'd like to thank all our panelists for the beautiful submissions, and I'm sure that we're all going to take it back home and reflect on it and do better. Make the laws more effective, pay more attention to upbringing, child policy in schools, to mention but a few. So once again, thank you all for joining us. Please don't stop supporting us in the JDPC, in the commission, for all the work that we do. So for everyone who joined in, thank you very much. And we pray that the Almighty God will grant His blessings on us all. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
That's Sister Augustina of Berry.
Yes, very much. Bye.
Shola Olakomi is here, saying thank you to everybody. Thank you, everyone. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year in view. Thank you, Media Center and hosts of this webinar. We appreciate you. Uraolua, thank you to everyone. God bless. Yes, we can stay till everybody says thank you and waves bye-bye. Thank you, Fumilayo, to everyone. Thank you. People are going to congratulate themselves now.